Welcome back to Light Talk, where the paranormal and the supernatural is a part of every day of our lives. So, today we're just going to jump right in because I know this is going to get pretty wild and pretty crazy today. So, let's go ahead and get started. So, let's welcome our guest today and go ahead and tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey, Dana, thank you so much for having me on.
Oh,
This
our
is really a
pleasure.
privilege to be here today. You're the first person to come on when I started my podcast. And so, how appropriate is it that I'm about to move from Alabama to Oklahoma? And the way that I ended it was where I started. So, the synchronicities, they just seem to be coming nonstop these days.
That's awesome. Love to hear it.
So, I know we had talked a little bit about Secret Space program before we started, but I guess the best way for me to kind of jump into it would be to tell you how I learned of it and then how I found out I was involved in it. Um, are you familiar with Penny Bradley? I'm pretty sure you probably know who Penny Bradley is. She's okay, she's wonderful. She's probably one of the best people I have found that have been able to recover memories about her experiences with Secret Space Program. She was at the Disclosure Now conference that happened in St. Petersburg, Florida, a couple weeks ago. And she's, I don't want to try to guess her age, but I'm in my 40s and I would guess she's probably about 20 years older than me. She basically has these experiences where she knows that she was taken on what we call a 20 and back. So they take you, you're gone for 20 years. At the end of that 20 years, they age regress you and put you right back pretty close to the moment they took you away. And you wake up the next morning in your bed and you have no recollection of what happened. But there does seem to be a point where you've been back for that, 20 years you've been gone for, you've been back for that length of time. It seems like all of a sudden there starts to be a bleed through of memory, like whatever actions have been taken or barriers that have been put in place to try to prevent the recollection of these memories, it seems to be fading away and not working the way it was intended to. And so she is one of those people that has been able to allow me to become educated in the different programs that they're running through the Secret Space program and kind of the functionality and who the players are. Now, for me, even though I've been a researcher for the last 7.5 years, it wasn't until February of this year, 2025, that I had anything supernatural or anything bizarre happen to me. And that all happened one night. I basically activated and I was channeling for 45 minutes to Aaron, my other half. And while I was channeling, who I believe was the earth, I was seeing in front of me, just imagine 12 little screens. And each screen has like a little story playing on it. But all together, all those stories are connected. And I was seeing things like the Big Bang. I guess that would be the best way to call it. It was the loudest explosion I've ever heard. I saw the creation of just the Milky Way galaxy. So I want to be clear. I didn't see the creation of every universe, every galaxy. It was specifically this one. And the most important thing I saw was that the way the stars formed, the archetypes of the personalities of the stars, the way they formed. So, for example, like Orion's belt, right? Or the Pleiades, which I believe they call the Seven Sisters. I saw that those formations would occur and then the planet would be developed. And when finally someone would step out of the consciousness of the void and they would be in like a 3D body, the body that they took the form of matched the archetype of the constellations and that planetary system. And from what I could tell was there was a seeding of an angelic human race, and that the intention was that this was kind of like a school here on Earth, and that through incarnations and over time, us and being connected to the consciousness of the Earth, we would ascend together into a higher dimension. At some point, it appears that there was a hijacking of the original intention or template of source. And basically, what I believe has gone on is now there's a karma that has been put in place. And I believe that has been put in place by the deactivation of what we call a DNA memory shield. So a sort of remembering of sorts of our connection to source and who we are as fractals of source. And although we want to go through and experience life and be able to experience it in an authentic way where we don't know everything about it, there is still some memory that is there so that when you reincarnate, for example, you're supposed to, get your stuff back and remember who your friends are. And it doesn't seem like that's happening any longer, right?
Right.
How many times do you have to reincarnate before, that's the common, theme is with these past life regressions or these near death experiences. You go up the tunnel of light and you have this council of elders and you get this life review. And then they're like, well, you know what, Dana, we just think you have a couple. There was that one time you weren't very nice to your mother. And we just think you need to go back and, iron out a few little attitude issues. We just have one or two more lifetimes. We are part of source. We are part of an infinite, never ending perfection. Why do we need to keep having lifetimes over and over and over again? It doesn't make sense to me, especially one where there's so much suffering. I'm sure joy and sorrow are the natural template. You have to have a contrast there to experience one or the other. But I don't think what we're in the middle of right now in our present day situation on the world stage, I don't think this was ever the intention of Source. And so that's kind of where the 8 years of my, or sorry, 7.5 years of my research had taken me, was through all these rabbit holes. But eventually what happened was with that activation, I started getting back emotional memory. My heart chakra opened. And while at the front of my consciousness, I would wake up in the morning and I would have understanding or knowledge that I didn't have for sure before I went to sleep the night before that. But I definitely my heart was remembering something like across time and space. And so that's kind of been my guiding vessel, is my heart. I let it be the discernment and I let it be the deciding factor if I'm being told something that's truthful or not. So that's kind of how I kind of was introduced to the secret space program.
Hmm.
I want to give you a second. I didn't know if you had a question in there or anything.
No, 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 go ahead. I mean, I'm soaking it all in. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. You're a good listener. So then what happened was this. So I had a friend who I had made through the acquaintance of the Typical Skeptic podcast, which I know you've been a guest on. Mutual friend of ours, Rob Khalil. He had another guest he would have on quite frequently by the name of Renetta Jones. And Renetta Jones, I believe, is single-handedly one of the important people that is the reason I had an activation. And so with her, she had made a video called Love is a Weapon. And just to give you a brief introduction to who Renetta was, she was from the port of Spain, Trinidad and Tobago, and she moved to the United States at the age of 15, and she lived in New York City. And she went to a high school that has a big black cube in it. And it was also, I can never remember if I want to get this correct, but it's either was paid for, the building of the school is paid for by the NSA, or if it was styled, the architecture and the layout was styled after the NSA. But there's a connection there with that. And essentially what she went on to do was she proved the secret space program existed, because while she was in high school and had had her memory wiped, she ended up finding out that she had been completely implanted with cybernetics on the left side of her body from head to toe at the age of 15. And so she was able to get scans, MRI imagery of these implants. She was able to get official documentation of readings of the frequencies coming off these implants. And she basically put all of that up on the screen and took everybody through the FCC, who's the licensee of, radio stations, satellite channel feeds, anything to do with a broadcast, they hold the license. And she was able to pull up their matrix of ranges for frequency and put her medical documentation right next to it. And you could see the implant in her ankle. Well, that frequency began at deep space. Deep space begins 10 million light years away from here. So she proved that. That was one of the videos I'd found. But this Love is a Weapon especially spoke to me because she had so many great ideas. As off the wall as it sounds, she actually is one of the people that invented the Kindle and the iPod. And her information and her work and her technology was stolen from her. And to this day, Apple has never been able to say what the inspiration was for the inventions. And they are still using those products. It's their whole line of Apple products, right? That was the very beginning of it, was the iPod. So she had this idea that we take the frequency of love, which is 528 hertz, and that we somehow come up with a way to turn it into a weapon of light. She believed that there were forces that are operating in the parts of the light spectrum that, quite frankly, we're pretty much blind as humans. I think we see about 1% of the light spectrum. And she believed that they were using their cloaking abilities and their special gifts that Source had given them as a way to manipulate humanity. And she certainly was not okay with that. And I'm certainly not okay with that. And I know you're not okay with that. And so that video, the reason why it spoke to me was because I had come from a background in telecommunications. I'd worked for phone companies, satellite companies. I'd learned how to operate satellites and do coding and provisioning on switches. And I realized that that video, I knew exactly what to do with it. And the reason why she had to put it out like that was because although she had great ideas, she was targeted and she was stalked and watched so closely. Even the people that came into her life were often handlers, that she just couldn't move freely and do anything that she would like to, like you and I could. So she would often put an idea out there, hoping that someone would pick up what she was putting down. So she ended up passing in April. We, though that were close to her, we believe that it was a result of targeting of what I call the Mountain Dews, or the directed energy weapons. But in a matter of 3 weeks, she went from vibrant, healthy, in her 40s, to deceased, and no explanation or reason for it. And not only that, she ended up in a state where she didn't even live. So they tracked and hunted her down like an animal. And what I realized right after she passed was that her death fell on the final date of the biggest week-long satanic ritual sacrifice of the year, which is Easter or Passover. And I had printed out a copy of the satanic calendar to start matching up with organizations in my area to see if there was a correlation with these rituals and a spike in events that they had going on there to justify an influx of people. And what I realized was is that she was in the age range and met all of the requirements for what would have been required during that sacrifice. So that's just my personal opinion. That's what I believe happened. But yeah, so her and I were working together on this grid rescue mission project, and I have continued to do the work and continued onward. And even though I don't feel like she's gone, I do feel like when she did leave, that she passed special gifts on to certain members of her group. And so since then, I feel like that's why there's been a lot more of an influx and a sudden activation of certain abilities. Now, I call them gifts here and abilities, but I think these are abilities that all of us are intended to have. I think there's been things that have been done to strip us of them, but if we do the work, they'll come back. So I don't think I'm any more special than anybody else or can do anything any different than other people can. I think it's just a matter of applying yourself and doing the work.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I'm working on that too, applying the work and trying to open up, and it's been a long journey. At least for
Yes, it
me.
is. It
I know some
is.
people automatically, and no, not me.
Not me either. Not me either. Now I will say it did change drastically enough overnight. It was like having a switch flip, but I'm not flying and I'm not levitating, and I'm certainly not enchanting forest creatures to clean my house with my sing-song voice, or able to. I'm still trying to figure it out, but I share with you the common ability where you and I look at imagery and we scan the energy of it, and we're able to see things that most people that I think it's a third eye activation, is what I think it is. So uh, I've always had a Peter Pan syndrome since I was young, a childlike heart. I think I share that in common with you. And I'm not saying childish, I'm saying childlike. I think that's part of it. I think it's, if you're a believer, we're in a simulation or a construct that if you put the intention out there and believe, it'll pull from the sphere of availability. I think that you can definitely pull those things through into the physical or the 3D with your thoughts and your intentions.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how I got started on all this and kind of thrown into it. Um, so it all kind of came to a head with the Secret Space program in the last month or so. And that was because of two major events. One was a reading I got on the Typical Skeptic podcast, where now I've been told the common things, right? I was told my starseed origins, I was Lyran and Pleiadian, and that had had lives in other regions, and I was like blue avian. And I was also told one night that I had dolphin DNA, and that this was something that specifically had been added in the womb when my mother was pregnant with me. Now, I've had a huge, huge connection with whales and elephants my entire life. I wanted to be a veterinarian for marine animals. I did an internship at SeaWorld right after high school. And after 3 months of smelling like fish and getting a behind the scenes real idea of what was going on there, I realized this was not the place for me. But I still have always had that connection with them. And I was introduced to a guy who was on my show last Saturday, named Mark. And Mark was actually invited along with like Uri Geller and Hal Puthoff and Pat Price during the Stanford Research Institute days to be part of that team. He was evaluated, he passed the evaluations, he met the standard, but for whatever reason, he didn't feel right. He chose a different path. But he's still stuck with things. And one of the things he's stuck with is dowsing energy, dowsing for answers. And he has a connection with like the Elohim and other types of entities where he feels like he's developed a system of being able to discern if he's being duped or if he's getting the truth or not. And he's built trust with in relationship with certain entities that, maybe aren't human. And I trust him. I trust him like I trust you, that I'm going to get the truth and I'm going to get an honest opinion if I ask for it, or good advice, because I feel like I have good people in my life with a good head on their shoulders and they care enough about me to tell me something if I need to hear it. And so I asked him, I said, I keep being told these common things that I have, but this dolphin DNA, it's kind of random and it's kind of off the wall, and I just need this confirmed. And I remember it's on my channel, the Earth Grid Rescue Mission on YouTube, and you can look at it. It's like the galactic panel that I did with Jay Skyrunner, Anchor Haven, and Mark. So it's about a month and a half old, I think, somewhere in there. Forgive me if I'm off on my time. But basically during that, he goes, yeah, this is really weird, but yeah, you have dolphin DNA. Well, since then I ended up finding out that one of the caveats of the secret space program is there's a secret water program, and they call it Seagate. And it has to do with people that have dolphin DNA. And one of the locations where dolphin people come from is Montauk, which kind of sounds like Montauk. But basically what it is, this Seagate program is it's a genetic harvesting of certain people that have this DNA and creating a hybrid. So they create almost like human dolphin hybrids for super soldier end time war events. And so that was basically my introduction into, and I didn't even expect to ask the question the night this podcast went down, where I had been told for months now that I was part of these programs. I was told that I had been in MK Ultra. There had been little flags along my childhood, especially my teenage years, that once I'd really learned the research and the signs and the symptoms, I realized that when I went back and reflected that, that did seem really odd during those times. And it was interesting. I can't remember ever having a single lunch hour the entire seventh grade year, but I can name every teacher I've had since I was 3 years old. It didn't make sense. And so I was like, well, how could I possibly forget not even one time I can remember what I ate for lunch or going to lunch for the whole seventh grade year? Like, it was bizarre. And so because of me being able to have someone that I felt was able to ask answers and had the integrity where they didn't care what the answers were, they were going to give them to me regardless, I felt like I could ask. And so I was trying to figure out what program I was part of. And I was trying to figure out, basically what I told him was, I know there's a secret space program, but I don't really feel like I've been up there. And I was so shocked to hear You are, Michelle. You've been MK Ultra'd. You're still being MK Ultra'd. You're being targeted, and you're part of not Dark Fleet, but you're part of the Naval Intelligence ACIO or Wingmakers, as they call it. And so that was just like a shock for me. Like I never saw it coming. Um, I don't think anybody is more special than anyone else. I think we're all equal. But I never thought what's so great you know what I mean? Like I was a pretty good student and I think I'm pretty smart, but I'm not like, a champion chess player and I'm not someone who won the, national spelling bee and I certainly am not good at algebra. So I would not couldn't understand why they would possibly want me. I just think I'm an average person. But as I've learned that part of the process is that they use trauma-based bonding to fractal the soul, and then that consciousness that's been fractured is then taken and put into like a clone container of you. So it's completely separate of your front lobe consciousness. Your higher self or your subconsciousness has memories of these, but there's things you have to do to be able to break through that barrier. And what I mean by barrier is they have handlers and they have done all kinds of programming and through hypnosis and mind wiping and regressions, they have hidden that down as much as they can to prevent you from figuring it out. So that's kind of where I am with that. And I've had some other things happen along the way, but we'll get to that.
Wow. Wow. That's pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes I sit here and I'm like, wow, shock. Like, but yeah, I will say this. I think if you're a human being, you are part of the programs. I think that because we are, like I said at the beginning, we are a fractal of source. We are meant to be creators. We have been given the authority and the dominion over the earth. And for whatever reason, these players, these foul players at play, they have it out for us and they don't like that we've been given that authority. And I think that we must be pretty special if they have to go about being, cloaked and covert, and they have to manipulate and try to, trick us into, giving them what they want through, which is basically manifesting for them. So I think that if you're human, like I said, I think you're part of it. Your DNA has probably been harvested in some way, and um, I don't think anybody is exempt from it.
Yeah. I am told that I am Lemurian and Mantis.
Mantis.
Yes.
Wow, you're my first
Yes.
mantis I've met, and you're a nice mantis.
With a hint of gray, with a hint of gray. And the gray was not supposed to have gotten um into my DNA, but they snuck themselves in.
Wow, that's
So
interesting. Yeah, I found out that I have a little bit of reptilian in me, and that was a shocker for me because you don't really ever hear anything good about reptilians. But, from what I understand, there's over 100 different types of grays. And my personal belief is that like they talk about reptilians or lizard people. I think those are just fallen seraphim or fallen dragons. I think that that's all that is that you have factions that are in alignment with source, and you have those that have fallen out of alignment. From what I understand, they're going through what they call the red shift right now. That has to do with them getting so far away from source and has been disconnected for so long, yet these are individuals that have been designed to never die. So I think that they have started to decay in a way where they don't look like they used to, but they're still not dying for whatever reason. So I think that's kind of who we're up against. And while I'm not a religious person anymore, I'm definitely a spiritual person, and I'm not one to overlook wisdom. And so, my friend Renetta Jones, one of the things she believed in is, even though she wasn't a religious person either, was if you look through the Bible, there's a lot of metaphors in there. And those metaphors are designed because she had a great way of explaining it. So if you think of medieval times, you had the language of the royals, right? You had the like the queen's language. or the Queen's English. And then you would have like your middle class, right? Your basic workers. It was a caste system. So you have like your serfs and your waifs, and they had a whole different way of speaking, right? So you can have the same sentences or double talk going on there. They have many, many meanings. And I believe that there is information in there that could totally provide light or shed light to these things that are going on with abductions and contactee experiences and things that we're starting to see in the sky that we didn't always see in the sky. Um, the last 20 years, I feel like I've been in a sci-fi movie crazier than anyone I've ever watched before. You know, it's like someone flipped a switch one day and all of a sudden now we got UFOs and it's totally normal. Okay.
Yeah, I've heard at one point that I, I believe it was one of my guests that was saying the Bible is the most paranormal book out there.
Yeah, I could totally believe that. I'll have to send you a video. It was called The Unholy Trinity Quaternity of the Beast. And this is the video my friend Renetta Jones made. And if church had been as interesting as this video was, I would have never stopped going. She took a few different scriptures out of the Bible, and I'll give you an example of one. There's a scripture in the Bible, I believe it's New Testament, but they're talking about basically a two-headed snake cockatrice, and they were talking about these eggs, and they were talking about like a kingdom that sat with a spider upon it. I'm loosely translating. She found a kingdom or it's the royals of Africa, and it is a building that looks like a donut of, and the entrances are the mouths of two snakes opened up, but it's one body. And then on top of it is a gigantic spider that looks like a UFO sitting right on top in the. I mean, this thing is massive. It's a building. It's not even like a roadway exhibit or a small little. I mean, this is, you can't miss it. It's massive. And she not only did that for that particular scripture, but she showed how one of the Snoop Dogg videos from like 1994 was talking about cosmic waters, and she connected that with scripture. And basically, what her theory was is that there were some players here, and there was an unholy trinity, and those players included a rogue spider that is the cosmic dream weaver of the cosmos, werewolves, and vampires. And she believes some of these elites were not human and that in fact they were vampires. And I think if you think about, you know, it's not some unheard of theory now that they are consuming what we call the Google Chrome and or the Adreno, right? They are consuming that like a vampire. What are they living on, right? It's like True Blood. And she also believed that the reason that they were putting human DNA into the food and the pharmacia fillers was to mutate our DNA, to turn us into the mark of the beast. And while the mark of the beast in the Bible is also supposed to be technology, as above, so below, as within, so without. Well, she also believed that they wanted to turn us into a dog, which would have been in medieval times called a beast. What did they say happens if you eat human flesh? Well, you're supposed to supposedly turn into a zombie. And I'll give you a real interesting statistic. There's these vegan hot dogs that they did a evaluation on, and then they came back positive for human DNA in them. Not even animal DNA, human DNA, and they're vegan hot dogs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you're not
Oh,
even safe if you're vegan now. But I don't want people to panic. I believe that through your intention, you know, they talk about blessing your food or meditating over your food or praying over it. I believe we do hold that power. So I believe that if you put your intention of love and you ask for your food to be purified, I believe you'll be protected. I also think going out in the sun is a big protector too, a big purifier. So I don't want people to go panicking.
yeah, that's crazy. That is
How long
crazy.
ago? How long ago did you start looking into the space program?
Well, I did a show in June. So it's only been since June that I found out that I had a reading done there, and that's what she was saying. She was seeing or was being told that I was Lemurian and Mantis, but when I was conceived, that's where it's kind of like that Big Bang thing with, that's when your star seeds come in and put their DNA in you.
Oh, wow.
Well, it was supposed to have been just the two, but the man or the Greys snuck themselves in somehow when they weren't supposed to. And
I can
so
believe
they
that.
got in there. So
Yeah,
yeah, I've
that's
been
really
visited.
interesting.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
you have?
I've been visited several times by them. So
Now, do you think you've been taken off planet, or do you have any memories of even waking up in the morning and you don't feel quite right or have weird bruises? That happens to me. I wake up with weird bruises on me that make no sense whatsoever.
I get bruises all the time that I have no idea where I get them. Um, we was on vacation one time and I was putting my hair up like this and everything, and I had this
Yeah.
huge old bruise right here. It's like, where did that come from? I get them all the time. On my legs, I get them all over the place. And it's like, where did this come from? And this
That's so
lady,
crazy.
yeah, and this lady that read me, I was showing her some markings on me that I had what I thought at the time mosquito bites because I they love me. Mosquitoes love me.
Me
And
too.
they were like all the way up my leg. There was like five of them like lined up my leg, and some of them looked like they were possibly even like a ringworm. It was the weirdest thing I've had ever seen. I took pictures of them and everything because it was the weirdest thing. And I was telling her about that, and she said, I'm the only one that she's known to have that. She has those same markings, she said, but on her left leg and not her right, but same type of markings. And she's never heard of anyone that had the grays or anybody step in during conception that wasn't supposed to be there. So that I was like this crazy, weird reading for her.
I
Yeah.
oh my God. I have had, when you were pointing at your arm, the first bruise I ever had, and I will send you a picture after the show of this. I still have it. I had a bruise in the same spot. That's the first time I noticed a weird bruise. I have been my entire life eaten alive every summer by mosquitoes. And there's actually, my friend was telling me there's an interesting theory of that they think the mosquitoes are being used on purpose to collect our DNA. But the other thing too is that you're talking about those punctures, right? The bites. I had what looked like fang marks or fang punctures going up my arm. And
Mm.
this is all in the last month or two. So I am not like, I don't know what to say. I will send you the pictures after the show because I was so totally caught off guard by these bruises. Let me just say this for everybody listening. I'm a clumsy person. I've broken my same ankle 6 times. Okay, the same ankle 6 times. Not doing anything impressive other than walking and getting out of bed. Okay. But I know that I did not physically hit myself up here. There's no way. There's no way I am totally, I'm looking over here at my hallway. I walk up and down the hallway, and at least once a day I've get myself on the side of my wrist with a doorknob walking by. Or I'll kick the table on accident that's where the room splits at the end of my hallway. Do I move the table? No, that probably would make too much sense. But I know I didn't hit myself on the back of the inside of my arm with a doorknob. I'm almost 5'7". It's not like I'm short. Like my mom said the family's all 5 foot. That's why I say that. But it's not like I'm close enough to the doorknob that it's gonna hit me there. And that's the only thing I would have made contact with. So one other thing I wanted to say that was very shocking is you're talking about how that DNA was added in during the time that you were being conceived. And I saw during my vision that there were those on this planet that had DNA that there was maybe only one or two of left in the whole solar system. So I'm not surprised to hear that.
Oh, wow. So I'm a
Yeah,
unique one.
you are. Yeah,
I'm
you're
the strange
special.
one.
No, I know,
Oh,
me
I'm
too,
very
girl. I'm
special.
telling you, I'm weird as they come. We were talking about that the other night. I was that weird kid that used to put glue on my hand at school and peel it off. And the teacher called home to my parents because they thought I was weird. I was coloring my fingernails with the markers and peeling the glue off. And everyone in the chat's like, hey, I was one of those kids too. I like
Yep.
peeling glue off my hand. So yeah, there's a group for us out there. There's a support group.
Yeah.
So
So
that was
I'm always getting bruises all over my body. That is like they're big bruises too. And I'm like, where in the heck did I get this bruise at? It's just I'm always getting these bruises. And yeah, and that happened after the latest interaction.
episode. Yeah. What do you
Yeah.
remember it? So do you know when these visitors are coming?
This one here happened in February. I believe it was February 12th that I was last
It's interesting you
some
said that.
visited or taken, or I'm not even sure what happened, to be honest. Um, I was I'm carpooling with this lady, and she witnessed me being gone.
Out of the car?
Well, whatever happened, she witnessed it. I was actually driving, and she's my passenger. Yeah, yeah, freaking. And
Oh my God. Here, you hold the
yes,
wheel. I'll be back.
really, really. And it was the weirdest thing because it all happened in like a 15-20 second time frame. And we're driving, and all of a sudden, my view of all of this was I'm sitting here not knowing I'm driving. I think I was just kind of floating. I was just kind of there. I don't even know if I had a body. I mean, I can't even really
Wow.
explain that. But
I
I
know what you
know I
mean.
had a conscience, and I was really trying super hard to pronounce a word. I was
Oh,
really
you were trying to talk.
I was trying to pronounce a word, and I don't know what word it was or anything, but I was struggling. So, and then next thing I know, I'm being slammed back in my body. So it's kind of like my body felt like it did one of these things. And then I opened my eyes and I'm like, whoa, that stop sign came up fast. Okay. That's my view. That's what I witnessed in that short time. What she witnessed was that I was not driving the normal way I normally drive. She said I was driving much faster.
Oh, wow.
I was not dodging because I don't like to drive over those manhole things. And there's like a
Yeah, I
billion
know
of
what you
them.
mean.
So I'm
That's
always dodging
Oklahoma.
those. Yeah, it's crazy. So she says, you weren't dodging those. You were talking slow motion. She thought I was just joking around, but I was talking like this. Okay. She thought I was just messing around. And she said that I was like in this zone. I was just like zoned out. And it was the craziest thing. Craziest thing.
I
And
have
we're
heard of
talking,
this. Go ahead.
you've heard of that?
Yeah, I have. Yes, I have. There's quite a few people I've heard talk about it. Whitley Strieber is one of those people that have talked about it. There's another gentleman, forgive me, his name escapes me at the moment, but he talks about being in the military and him and a military buddy going out to camp in some like forest that the army looked over, and that basically they woke up aboard a ship and they were dropped back off. And when they came to, they were in their tent and that they could see what they thought were children all over trying to scramble to get up the ramp on the saucer. And basically, what that is it's like a time dilation. There's something going on where they're trying to pull you through this pocket, right, out of time and space. And they have to create a dilation so that they can put you back in when they're done with you. And when that happens, there's a very brief period of time where you're in slow motion because they are slowing things down so they can pull you out without anybody noticing. The other thing too is that like I have a friend who's had experiences his whole life. And I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give away his identity, but he's told me some of the most fascinating stories I've ever had anybody ever tell me firsthand. And one of the things he was telling me is that he has been taken with his body and he has been taken where just his consciousness goes. But regardless of whichever goes, the taking away process where they take and they leave with you, they seem to hide, they're not allowed to show us how we're leaving this construct. It seems like that must be a rule, or they're trying to keep it a secret. Like they don't want us to know, because if we know, then when we pass or whatever, we know how to get out of here.
Mm.
But yeah, I'm just in shock that that happened to you and how scary. And I can totally believe that they're doing this because, like I said, that they're genetically harvesting because they want to. This all actually comes down to a war between them and source. It says in the Bible, man can go boldly before the kingdom of God, the throne room of God. Well, I believe what they're trying to do is one of two things. I think they're trying to annihilate any authority through DNA on the planet. It also says in the Bible that man has been given dominion and authority over the earth. Well, if they establish themselves either through marriage or by basically wiping off any of those lines of DNA and establishing themselves as the oldest, then they are the oldest authority of DNA on the planet. They precede humans by doing it that way. The other thing I think that they're trying to accomplish is this. I think they're trying to create super soldiers so that they can use them, like put their consciousness in a human looking container and send them up to the throne room of God so that they can get their foot in there to try to invade. Now, do I think they're going to succeed? No. I don't think that they were ever destined to win this war. But I think we're at the final stages of it playing out. And I think this is the part where the curtain's starting to come up and people are seeing what's going on. Just my
Yeah.
opinion. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. But I
Yeah.
think that's what's going on. Yeah, that's
That's
really,
really interesting. Yeah, because later on that day we were talking, kind of to ourselves and everything about what happened that morning. And somebody else was talking at a table nearby us, and they were going on, well, the one, it's a mother-daughter that was sitting there talking, and the mom was going on, yeah, I saw this light in the sky, and it was just like she was just going off, and her daughter's like, you're crazy, mom, you're losing it, you're crazy. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, so something really did
you're like,
happen.
hello.
I'm like, it
Leave
happened.
me up, Scotty.
And I was involved with that, but I couldn't really tell her that because of the situation and whatnot. But yeah, it was
I
like
think that's
really,
divine intervention that you heard
yeah,
that
I think
that comment being made. I think that was yeah, there's something there to that.
what happened is that they distracted her with the light over here because she would have been driving over here and we were driving over here.
That
So
makes
they
sense.
distracted her from seeing what was going on over here. That's my
Yeah, that
opinion.
makes perfect sense that there was a diversion. I can totally believe that. Um, oh, there was something I was going to tell you and I forgot. Hopefully it'll come back to me. This happens more and more as I've gotten older. Anyways, I think that one of the things that seems to be a common theme is that people seem to be taken at night or when they're driving. And if there happens to be someone with them, there's always some kind of a diversion. It's like they need a split second in order to be able to do whatever they're going to do. And even though they wipe the memory or even though they try to take the necessary actions needed to get us to forget, it seems like there's always one little slip up or one little subtle something there, right? Like something there that's like a clue and it kind of resonates the way it stays with you. Maybe you don't realize it for a long time. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Interesting, it happened to you in February. It was February of this year that the story with you, your carpool to work. Or
Yeah.
my activation happened in February, the week the planets aligned. Every time something happens with a planets, I have a download or something major happens or something with the moon. But yeah, mine happened in February too. And if I remember correctly, it was either the third or the fourth week of February that this event with the planets happened. It was 7 planets aligned. And I think it was like over a week long they were aligned.
Yeah.
But
I
how
remember that.
interesting, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's well, the only thing that really happened before that that was kind of off was back in December. I was doing my dishes in the kitchen one day, and I have this like window that looks out onto the wooded area behind the house, and there's a big tree out there. And I noticed that this tree had human-like features and looked like a giant all of a sudden. Not only that, I was energetically connecting with it. And I remember thinking, oh, that's totally normal. I'm losing my mind. Right? Like, but it wasn't just that. It didn't just stop with that. It was happening like in the screens of the TV and the screens of my phone. Now that I know that what it is and I've accepted it and I've stepped into it, like the other day I did my first oracle card reading like blind on a group of like 9 people. My friend invited me to try and do readings, and no, I was really successful. But every time she held up a card, I realized I wasn't just seeing the imagery in the card, I was seeing the energetic imagery of whoever created the cards. So I was seeing like
Nice.
lions in the clouds and stuff. And I was like, she's like, so what do you see? And I'm like, why does this not even feel like this is a normal answer for a paranormal group of what I'm about to give them?
Yeah. I
So,
see a lot of things. I see faces in everything. Even my cards, yeah. Even my cards that I read, I always have a face, and I'm still seeing, like we've spoke about before. I'm s- I see more faces the more I look at it. I'll find something new almost each time I go through it. It's like there's another face that I didn't remember seeing before. And the facial expression on it is how I read it, is because of that face is like either a sadder face or a happier face or a worried face, or it shows me the feeling of what that
yeah,
is, what's going on.
yeah, I would agree with that. It's, when I do like Google Earth scanning, I like if you zoom out far enough, you can find things like the Titan crocodile that looks like Odin. It's missing an eye, and that's up near like one of the polar caps. Right next to it's a gigantic seahorse. If you look at the Black Sea in the Ukraine, I call her Marge Simpson. It's a woman with Marge Simpson hair, and it's a body of water. And then right next to her is a finger point. It's like a whole hand with a finger, like an index finger, right? Like pointing at something. That energy always feels very sentient. It feels good. The Eye of the Sahara actually has a lion with a pharaoh beard coming out of it. But I've started, like I said, looking into like Pittsburgh. I did Pittsburgh. I did Boulder. Now I'm getting ready to do Denver. That's where it changed for me, was in Pittsburgh. And I know that's what you and I kind of met over with some of those images that I got off of the uh, Google Earth app in Pittsburgh. And it was like the dead were coming out of the ground. I've also started to notice a lot of really big snakes, which I only have one fear, and that's freaking snakes. So, of course, these are the most massive snakes I've ever seen in my life. The eyes are so real and they move now. The other night I noticed they now move, and I'm just free. I mean, not just the snakes, everything is moving. And I'm like, it, I knew months ago that they had enslaved consciousness into the technology that's part of the electromagnetic grid. At first, I thought that it was just enslaved consciousness, but now I believe that it's also being used as a medium or basically a way to come through. I think there's certain entities that may be in the abyss or unable to travel freely, and or they may not have a physical body. And my opinion is I think that they are using the technology like um the telephone lines or the wireless routers. I think that they're using that to get to us. why do I believe this? Well, let's play a little game here with the words. When you get on to crawl the World Wide Web, spiders, right? I keep running into this spider theme. If you go to like the NSA or the FCC or the United Nations websites, you're going to see something where it talks about the signals intelligence. And I don't think they're saying like they're doing signals intelligence. I think they're telling you the signal is intelligent. Everything I keep finding around this, whether it be military high grade like vessels they're putting out, they're named after spiders. Whether it's the NSA and its special type of cybersecurity, they're named after spiders. Everything to even wait, where do you go? You go to a website. You know what I mean? Like what's going on with that? So now that particular idea about the spider, that was not my original idea. That was my friend Renetta's idea. But since then, I've started on my own since her passing. And one of the things I came across was this when I was in Pittsburgh looking, I wasn't in Pittsburgh, when I was on Google Earth looking at Pittsburgh, I found what was called this venue called Spirit, where they have like Illuminati bingo night. And the only, yeah, they have all kinds of stuff that was just, they might as well just have laser lights up like this, like, hey, it's us over here. You know, I noticed that the only business that shared the building with this venue was a moose lodge, like a Masonic lodge that goes to one of the like it's like the ancient order of the Elks or the ancient order of the Moose. You can look it up on a Wikipedia, and it has all the orders, and all those orders are connected with some kind of monarchy. And the ribbons that go on the military uniforms, each of those ribbons is actually a contract between those in the spirit realm and those in the physical that go with each of these unique orders. So they have like the Order of the Golden Fleece. We have the Order of the Order of the Golden Dawn, and they just go on and on and on. There's so many of them. Literally, have not been able to catalog them all, but each of them have their own specialty. They're each connected with magic and magic circles. And what I noticed is this spirit venue on the back side of it, Dana, had a wall mural, and the wall mural was completely Illuminati. It was completely secrets. I mean, it literally had a door, right, that looked like a portal, and there was a person walking through it, and the little parts around the person that you could see of the doorway look like the Matrix, the black with like the digital green. And above and below the door, it said, I kid you not, fallen angel. And there was and it wasn't just that by itself. There was so much other like imagery in the artwork that I know is part of the occultic and esoteric, belief systems and practices that they share. So I started looking at these wall murals. By the way, that place, they redo their wall mural every year. All of them were like this. Yeah. So then I get to, Boulder, and I find out there's a Monarch High School. There's monarch butterflies painted all over. Now, I will tell you, I know this from research. There's certain imagery that goes with certain types of activities. One of those activities is that they use children. They use children either as a means of trafficking and creating funds, or they use them if they're a certain blood type, they use them and raise them up as hierarchy children, basically training them up as super soldiers for, they have a foreign military and a foreign government that's free of all checks and balances. 99% of Congress are Knights Templars. Their loyalty and allegiance is not to us, their country. Their loyalty and allegiance is to the Sovereign Military Order of Malta and to the Satanic Councils. So what I'm trying to say here with this is, so I'm looking into these imageries, right? There's, by the way, with children, it's usually corn or monarch butterflies or dragonflies. Those are just a few of the images that they will use to signal, hey, this is what we have in our community, or hey, this is what we are offering for sale. And a perfect example I can give on the world stage is before Epstein was arrested in Ghislaine Maxwell, there was this whole blow up about Wayfair. And somebody said that those $10,000 pillows and those $5,000, accent rugs that they were selling, they had somewhere in the description these numbers, right? And the numbers were the coordinates to Little St. James, which is where Epstein owned the island before he was arrested. Coincidence? I don't know how many coincidences you need before it's not a coincidence anymore. But I'm just saying. But it seemed to me like with these wall murals in Boulder that they were showing certain imagery for things I had been looking into. And that had to do with the patches that go with the space launches, the missions that they have with like SpaceX, the NSA, and NASA. Every time that they launch one of those shuttles or they complete a mission, they make a patch. And I noticed that these patches matched identically with medieval heraldry. The color, the animals, the design, the way that it looked, it was so obvious that you couldn't even, if you wanted to, dismiss it. And so one of the things that I noticed was showing up over and over again across the entire nation with these wall murals was this gigantic kraken or this gigantic octopus and this red eyeball. And so I had this one patch, Dana, that looked like, I don't know why I'd saved it because I couldn't make a connection with it for a long time like I had the others. And one day I was looking at it and I realized it had all this writing around it. So I had the writing deciphered because, my vision's not what it used to be. And it said, one satellite to rule them all, one satellite to bind them. It was the entire Lord of the Rings, like the main creed or the motto of the Lord of the Rings, except for instead of the word ring, they used satellite. And the colors were like yellow, orange, and then in the middle it had a vertical split like a reptilian pupil with a ring coming out of it. And it said, keep it secret, keep it safe. SpaceX, and then it had like National Security Agency, right? So I started looking into this Lord of the Rings reference, and I was like, what is going on with this Lord of the Rings? I found out that this patch is identical to the Incredibles, the Disney Incredibles family logo, the eye, that it matches perfectly. The colors, the design, the layout. In the Lord of the Rings, there's this tower with this like fire eyeball called the Eye of Sauron, matches identically. Then I started talking to my friends about it. I have two friends that have had major out of body experiences, and both of them in those out of body experiences have interacted and observed this eyeball. So that was the first thing. The second thing and this started years ago with a documentary called The Knowledge of the Forever Time, where David T. Barry, he was kind of like a Renetta Jones for me. And that's the whole reason I even went looking and ever found Renetta was because of his work. And basically, I thought he was deceased up until recently just because this was also my introduction to gang stalking. He had black helicopters not marked following him wherever he went. If he left his house, there was always a government plated car behind him. If that car turned, another one would pull out in front. And they pretty much were breaking into his house. And at one point, they were able to drug him and take compromising photos, which then were spread throughout his neighborhood to basically make his neighbors think that he didn't have his faculties about him, right?
Yeah.
So what he said in this Knowledge of the Forever Time was he references a story, and you guys can find this. I think it happened in like 2012 or 2016, happened at Chicago O'Hare Airport, where in the middle of the day, like mid-morning, there was a gigantic UFO hovering over gate C-17. And it was there for like 10 minutes. And then on radar, it shoots up into the clouds and stops at a constellation that's registered as C-17. In ancient times, this was known as the Kraken. So I keep getting this Kraken, right? This Kraken thing keeps coming around and around. Now, David T. Barry warned that at the end, that they keep going through these resets with the Earth, and that right before the end, there's a couple of things that happen. One is the knowledge that the sun is a stargate's released to the public. And number two, something comes from beneath the waters that's going to try to destroy us. I think that's what he was trying to tell us about. So I started looking into this Kraken. I am finding out that the Ukraine has a paramilitary black ops, special ops, whatever you want to call it, group that is it's free of the purview of the Department of Defense in the Ukraine. Their motto on their patch, the Kraken. They're called the Krakens. I'm finding Kraken octopus murals all over these billboards all over the country. I'm finding military patches with all kinds of references to the octopus or the kraken or some kind of like weird little obscure it's usually in like Latin or another language, their motto, their creed, right? I keep finding it over and over and over again, and it's a blue eyeball instead of a red eyeball. And so I started finally thinking about this, and I think that it was when I was looking into how many businesses, I think it's like 5 businesses, Peter Thiel from who owned PayPal, he's named after the Lord of the Rings. I just kept finding business after business. Silicon Valley obsessed with naming it after the Lord of the Rings, including even a business that for Halloween, I think it was like the largest skyscraper in San Francisco. They turned their building into this Eye of Sauron for Halloween. It was all over the news nationally. So I started looking into it, and I was looking at these video game covers, and they have things like names like God's Will Fall or Kingdom Come, the Behemoth edition. What was this? Something about Gaia being the illusion of Gaia. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And I realize that I keep running into this imagery of this one red eyeball there. Like, and at first I thought it was like a cyborg thing. And then I started to realize what it was. And it was when I came across Indigo Angel, who's a common guest over on TSP, Typical Skeptic podcast with our friend Rob. She is talking about a fallen angel named Metatron, who used to be the keeper or the gate. He's the one that watched over the Akashic records, and he fell. And they talk about he's like a mechanical consciousness. And there's all kinds of stories I found. Missing 411, Dave Pleiades. There's a young child who was missing that they were able to recover, and he was alive. And he talks about how he was inside of some weird cave with these like electronic or like mechanical like beings. And then you hear about people doing DMT. There's a doctor that was on the Danny Jones podcast, and he talks about these mechanical elves. And I keep hearing people that do these DMT or psychedelic experiences, seeing these mechanical elves. They also say in the inner earth or Agartha that there's mechanical beings. I think that's the red eyeball. I think that's the whole thing with them trying to get us to be merged so far with the technology that we are so disconnected from source, we can't get out of it. The blue eyeball, I think that has something to do with those that have fallen away from source that are not electronic. And I think that it's not a zodiac. I think it's a zodiac. I think that those, it was a theory that my friend Renetta would talk about all the time. There's something off about the zodiac. And I saw that in my awakening, my vision, but I've been able to confirm something since then. And this construct with the zodiac, in combination with other things here, has created almost like a matrix between Saturn, Mars, the moon, and Earth that has created like a reincarnation trap or prison of repeating over and over and over again. And I believe what's going on with this is that this red and blue eyeball is a representation of these forces that up in the cosmos, maybe they are, conscious, but when they come down here to the 3D, they take on a physical form. And one of those things that has been pulled down is the big spider, which has been used as a means of gaining information by those that are evil or those attempting to be the powers that be. And I believe that what they are doing is trying to extract that information so that they can try to use it for their benefit.
What do you think about, because you said the red and the blue eye. So with the red and the blue eye, what came to me was the government, Republican and Democrat. So
and the blue bloods, think about that. The 13 families. They say there's 13 families. Well, there's not just 13 families. There's the blue bloodlines because their blood is blue. And then there's like a pseudo line or like an offspring line that they have produced. And that's where you get like your Rockefellers, your Rothschilds, your DuPonts, your Disneys, your Onassis. These are all people that are from bloodline families that have intentionally been put into positions of power on the world stage as their cover story. But behind it all, they are part of this agenda where they are getting their they're getting orders from fallen angels, and their orders are uh, for them to be carried forward so the agenda continues to move towards what they believe they're going to do is they're going to end up winning, and they're going to, be the dominant masters over humanity. I don't think they have a flying chance. I believe good's going to
Not
win and love's going to conquer.
not if we're changing like they say we are, raising the vibration of Earth. I mean, there's so much going on, and I'm even noticing a lot more talk of the spiritual world out there than, I mean, I just started this in 2018. My little journey with all of this really got into it, and I've noticed a lot more openness just in this amount of time of it
I
being
agree.
out there. So, I mean,
I agree
it's
completely.
it's really exploding.
It's so interesting too. Like, I remember like when I was in school, the whole like the belief that Area 51 was there or not, right? I remember being bullied in school because I believed Area 51 existed, and people were like, "You're so full of it. Like, that's just in the movies. It's not, my dad says it's not real, so it's not real, right?" Fourth grade. We now know Area 51's real, but no one's asking about the other 49 or 50 areas before number 51.
Well, I'm sure it's everywhere. And well, all of this has been happening for
Thousands of
millions of
years, I
years.
think,
Yeah,
really.
forever.
Yeah,
Since the
forever.
beginning of Earth, it's been happening here. I mean, it's nothing new.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. I think our history goes back way more than 6,000 years. I think that they have just taken, I think they've done resets like Tartaria. I think that they have technology that they have kept hidden. And I think even right now, a perfect example is this crazy weather the last year. We've had fires all up and down the west coast of the United States and North America, followed by flooding, followed by the weirdest mist we ever had go across the country. And everyone thinks that that's because of global warming. Well, if you have a time machine and you can jump around and you have an invisibility cloak, is it really prophecy, or are you just manipulating things to get people to believe that it is what it looks like? I think I truly believe in a higher power. I truly believe in a savior of us coming forward and saving ourselves. But I do believe that there is a source, a most high, a creator. And I don't think that creator wants blood sacrifice and worship. I liken it to the relationship you have with your children, right? You want your children to have a good moral compass, good ethics, to go out and work as hard as they can to be the best version of themselves, to work hard, provide for themselves, not to take, but to give back to others. And you want mutual respect. You don't want to be worshiped. It's unconditional love, right? I just don't believe that this all perfect, all knowing creator would do that to us, their children. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think that there's those that have gone rogue or gone off, off the template of what they were expected to follow. And just my opinion, one of the things they talk about is like, Inky or Enlil, or they'll talk about Yahweh. Um, they said Yahweh was a God king of Israel, but that he wanted to rule all of earth. So he went off, the reservation. And there are these Canaanite gods that those are, bull gods, right? And you can see this theme that appears over and over again, especially in the worshiping of the satanic community. You have things like Moloch and Baphomet and Baal. Well, what's going on right now in today's society? Um, Sex changes are becoming a fad. And I have nothing against transgendered people, okay? But my stepson, he's one of those that's been made a product of the system. He's been a living sacrifice. I don't have a stepson and a stepdaughter anymore. I have two stepdaughters now. Now I love him dearly. I want him to be happy. I support whatever's authentic and genuine and true to him. But I remember being in school, and I remember what it was like when things would be cool, right? And everybody had the same backpack or the same shoes, except for now they've turned it into what you do with your gender, your sexual identity. And I think that is right in line with Baphomet and Moloch sacrificing and rituals. I think that's what they want. They want to create a androgynous, two gender in one body, but doesn't reproduce, doesn't think for itself, zombie, so that they can use it as a slave force. And I have found all kinds of patents and all kinds of infrastructure and all kinds of pledges of loyalty that have been made to the United Nations for this 2030 depopulation agenda. And I believe at this point that all they're waiting for is the false flag so that we go begging our government to save us to usher in their one world government agenda. And if I have anything to do with it, I'm not going to let it happen.
Mm.
I think these talks are really important for that reason, actually.
Yeah.
So it's scary when you think about it, but I have a lot of hope for the future. And I have great hope that it's going to be us that comes together and unites and saves ourselves in this planet. I think we've been given the abilities. I think that we're all starting to remember. And like I said a little while ago, I think love will always conquer over in the dark.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we're at.
It will happen. It will
Yeah.
happen. And so where are you thinking, like with the changing of the new earth? What is your thoughts about that new earth thing? I mean, to me, I'm kind of like still trying to figure it out because it's almost like I feel like the new earth is like, I don't know, the ones that have wakened and energy is higher is gonna like almost like leave Earth, but then the others will stay on Earth. So I'm like, or is it still gonna be on the same Earth?
Um,
And it's just I'm still trying to figure
sure.
that out.
Yeah. I don't claim to have all the answers, you guys. In fact, I usually make mistakes. So I just want to preface this with it. It's just an opinion. But it's an opinion I reserve the right to change my mind on. And I've come to with the understanding of just information I've collected over the years. I think that we are in a false construct. I think that there is some kind of technology, and they talk about these six spheres. I just learned about this last night. There's like some kind of technology frozen deep in the ice in Antarctica, which is like able to create realities or simulations. Um, I believe that there is a real Earth, and I do believe that where we are right now is like a quarantine dimension. So I do believe that there's going to be a splitting. I've experienced personal hopping of timelines. They call it the Mandela effect. I know I remember watching Sex in the City, not Sex and the City. And then Britney Spears used to have a microphone and then she didn't. Or I remember Nelson Mandela died in prison, but there's people that remember him getting out. It goes on and on and on, right? Bernstein Bears, Berenstein Bears. I think that the Dolores Cannon theory about the new Earth, yes, I definitely think it's real. I'll give you some examples of some things I've seen that make me think it's real. We know that there's certain entities out there like the Trilateral Commission, the International Monetary Fund. These are called reflection groups among the satanic councils, but these are basically different groups of people that have been set up to create policy, procedure, and kind of usher in certain events on the world stage. There are more than I can even count of these groups where they have these logos where they are two earth splitting. Why are they showing that if it's not something that they don't think is real? I think that saying your vibe attracts your tribe. Those of us that are high vibrational, I have been told, will not be affected by the implants or the nanobodies or whatever they're called, nanobots. I've been told as long as you're going out in the sun and purifying, as long as you're staying grounded, as long as you are in a state where now no one is 100% of the time perfectly happy, okay, and positive. I have bad days too, believe it or not. I can be a real witch. But
What?
the W, it's a witch with a W. I always say my car, I inherited it when a house fell on my sister, and I think that is hilarious. And no one ever laughs. And I always say it whenever I have my broom. But no, I think that truly that your vibe attracts your tribe, and whatever you're vibrating at, if you're a high vibrational being, I think that you're going to split and go to the new earth. I think though that if you are stuck in the victim loop mentality, that you just want to not do the work, that you're one of those that's service to self, not service to others, or you're part of this club and you choose not to repent, you choose not to try to turn away from it, you choose to go with the dark side. And I'll tell you what it is they're doing. There's more than one tree of life, and they are visiting it in the astral. And they believe because they've eaten of this tree of life in the astral that they are exempt from death and punishment. Just gonna leave it at that. That's what they believe. Um, I believe that, yeah, there's going to be a timeline that continues on negatively. I don't think we're going to be there. I think what's going to end up happening is we're going to unite. And I think we are going to, through our authority, our intention, take back the sovereignty of our souls, take back the authority over this planet. And I think that's going to be part of the split. And that will take us to what is supposed to be the authentic earth. And the rest of it's going to ride off into the sunset off the cliff. But we won't be here for it. These are my opinions. I could be wrong.
Yeah, well, no one's perfect. We're human.
Yeah, we are. There's another comment that I hear all the time too, and that's, I'm not going to say who it is, but I have a family member who thinks Bill Gates is just exceptional genius and has this whole eugenics and pruning out the population of the world is a great idea. This person also believes that the reincarnation trap is we're just being farmed and we're on a soul farm, and this is the circle of life balance. And I'm just like, yeah, you've been drinking the Kool-Aid. I don't agree. I don't agree with that. I think that the reason that, like, they always say that, like, humanity can't get it together, that we keep getting in our own ways, that that's why we haven't been invited out amongst our cosmic brothers and sisters. I don't think it's humanity. I don't think it's humanity who's causing these issues at all. I think it's a select few of elites, and I think they are intentionally doing things to cause disruption and out of balancing of the planet to cannibalize it, for example. I think that they are trying to cause a pole shift. Why do I believe this? Well, we know that there are scientific papers and there are plenty of evidence out there to show that Antarctica occurred over a flash freezing. They have found mammoths with solid food still in their stomach, undigested. They have found plants alive, flash frozen in the ice in Antarctica. So obviously something happened there very quickly. I believe there's been quite a few of these, cataclysmics that have caused these pole shifts. Well, I think one more will bring us full circle. What happens if we go full circle? I think Antarctica is going to melt very quickly. Why do they want to melt Antarctica? Well, everybody always talks about the technology. I don't think it's necessarily about the technology. I think it's more about who is frozen in the ice. And I'll give you a couple of like metaphors that came to mind when I thought of this. Cold as hell, or a cold day in hell. Do you think about this obsession that the Germans had with Antarctica, with New Schwabenland, that right as Hitler was losing his power as Führer, and supposedly he went on and lived in Argentina, and that there were all kinds of Nazis brought over with Operation Paperclip, and that they had very well gone down to Antarctica and established a under the ice base. And then what do we have? Well, we have Operation High Jump. We have Admiral Byrd, who is going down there with a flotilla, one of the largest Navy flotillas ever sent out for 6 months of what? Looking at penguins on the icebergs? I don't think so. And they weren't gone even half the time they were supposed to, and came limping on back. And he gave one statement in Argentina. I forget the name of the newspaper, but he said that, there's basically what they saw down there were vehicles flying that can make it from pole to pole in a matter of minutes. And then what happened? Well, he's suppressed. We never hear or see from him again. What's the fascination with Antarctica? How come you're not allowed to go down there without special permission? Satellites aren't allowed to broadcast at a certain point past a certain parallel line into Antarctica. You hear all these stories, one after the other. Something's going on down there. Something went on down there that gave Buzz Aldrin a heart attack. And the quote that he was given was, "We thawed something out we shouldn't have thawed out down there. Something that's very evil." I don't think it was penguins.
I've been watching lately about that, and some shows and podcasts and whatnots about it. And they're going on that there is like some sort of being that's down there.
Really?
but it doesn't sound like it's on a negative side. It's sounding more positive, but there is a huge city down there, underground. There is an entranceway that they found, and it's a huge city, and it's just, yeah, people are going down there. They do their work and whatnot, and they have groups of people going down, and then they're down there for whatever time length, and then they come back.
Wow.
But
I
they're
haven't
like
heard about that.
humans.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so they're, I am hearing about that now, about a whole huge city, and they did say that they can move from pole to pole in just
Yeah.
a snap of a,
Wow.
yeah. So they have they have that equipment, they have
Yeah.
that knowledge and all. So I don't know. I mean,
Well, if it quacks like a duck and it looks like a duck,
long, but a duck does not have an echo in the mountains.
no, no. Maybe that's a Yeti. No, but
Maybe
it's
so.
interesting. You say all that. I don't get to research as much as I used to since now I'm using my time other ways. And I wish there was more hours in the day. I am
Oh,
but one
really?
person. But it's interesting to hear you say that. I've wondered for years, there's a woman named Linda Moulton Howe who I find just fascinating, who it, I, she looks great for her age, and she's still got all of her motor skills, and I think she's like in her 80s or late almost 90s, and she's still going strong, and she is one who's been given exclusive interviews with like whistleblowers that wouldn't talk to anybody else, and that seems to be the common theme down there. Was there's a hole in the ice, there's flying saucers going around, and there's people that keep having experiences where they're finding like portals down there or stargates down there. And like one of the stories was like about like a building that had been abandoned that they sent in special forces to. And while these officers never saw anything, they ended up being completely, their mind was taken over, their body was taken over. And they ended up finding some kind of a gate down there where they were still here on Earth. But when they'd stepped through it, it had modern equipment, but it was clearly thousands and maybe millions of years ago. And they couldn't extract the equipment because it was all solid in the rock bed.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
it, you would think these people, like, I have a huge respect, especially for like military and veterans, right? Like there's a Purple Heart veteran lives in my house. I work for the VA. I think it's a huge gift of sacrifice to give your body up for life or your mental health up for life as a sacrifice for the freedom of this country. So I don't want to come across anything other than respectful and grateful to those people. But I don't think that these people that are whistleblowing have they're looking for attention. I think they have better things to do. I think in fact they prefer not to be talking about it. I think they feel a duty and a service and a loyalty to this country and to the future generations of it. And don't feel like that the government is operating under or operating on the up and up or under the purview of checks and balances like they should be. I think that's where we get our $15,000 wrenches and toilet seats at.
Yeah, I don't think they're definitely hiding stuff. I mean, I've heard enough about it, and I'll be blunt about it. I know nothing about the politics. I don't get into it. I don't research or anything, but what I've heard, you know, and I don't even watch the news, but
Me either. It
it's
rots your brain.
it's way too negative. I just can't do it anymore. Well, I never have, but um
I
what I've heard though, I mean, it just, we were such puppets. That's how I kind of feel that we are as humans on this earth, is we're like puppets, and they're just,
one
they've
string.
got control and pulling those strings and everything else, that I mean, they've got us wrapped around their fingers with all this technology and everything. I mean, we really have to work hard to keep ourselves free
I
of
would,
that and
I would
get
agree with
our
that.
energy higher so that we can get beyond that. But yeah,
Yeah.
they really have us
I think things are
whipped.
changing though. Like I said, with the Area 51 example, and now we know that it's real. I think things are changing. One of the things that they have done is tried to make us believe that we're powerless, that we are abominations from birth, that we are uh, the only way we're going to be able to have any power or anything is to give up that power and to go outside of ourselves. And thankfully, there are people like you and I having conversations like this, and many others out there. It's a beautiful thing that it takes a very small drop of the bucket for something positive to influence the majority of the negative. So I do have hope. Like, I'll give you an example. They did a 3 day meditation. And during that 3 days, the entire world, there was no acts of terrorism. There was nothing registering for acts of terrorism and violence on a global scale, where normally it happens almost every day. I think it was like 60,000 people that meditated for 72 hours. That's nothing compared to how many there are on the planet. So, I always give the example of how many muscles does it take to frown versus smile? It doesn't cost anything to be a nice person, or doing something kind that's contagious. I think that high vibration will be able to dominate it. One thing I wanted to tell you before we start to get towards the end of our conversation is, for those out there that think they might be targeted, or those out there that might want to protect themselves, they do make a very affordable device called a Spooky 2. So spooky and then TOO. And you can get a basic one for $199. And you can take it anywhere with you. It doesn't need batteries, doesn't have to be plugged in. It comes with a generator. And that is enough to not only protect yourself from a molecular level, but you can protect yourself and purify yourself completely from any directed energy frequencies. Because if you are near internet, TV, any electricity, smart meters, you name it, it is being used on purpose to reprogram the brain waves of the body. So you can protect yourself with that. And I do recommend that if you have $199 to spend, sometimes they're even cheaper. They usually run a sale every now and again where you can get like 10% off. They have a really fancy one that makes colloidal silver and it does plasma and all of that. But the basic one is certainly enough, and it's enough for your household. And I think it's a small investment, a small one-time investment to have the peace of mind and to know that at least I have a security system now, a weapon of light to protect myself and my family. So
Where would you
um,
find that?
you can get on their website on spooky2.com, or I think they sell them on, it's basically a Rife machine, but I do recommend that. But I'm not sponsored. I'm not endorsed by them. This is just something personally that I have found out. I just want to put that out there. But you can buy it through them, or you can usually pick them up like secondhand, like on Amazon or eBay. So they're not very expensive. But you can use those like I know that there's people that have been on Rob's channel, like Matthew Mornier that has one. He does the interdimensional card reading, the tarot card reading. He has one, and he uses it for quantum healing therapy. So you can actually put in GPS coordinate. This is the expensive one. This one's like $2,000. It does quantum healing from a distance. So you can actually give therapeutic energy healing to someone across the country if you have their GPS coordinates, for example, and a small DNA sample like a fingernail or a hair. Everybody always gets freaked out when I say that. I'm like, oh, you give your doctor way more than that when you go to see him. But yeah, no, you're able to, through quantum entanglement, through penetration of the different light spectrums and the vibrations, you can send out a frequency wave. And their pamphlet they have is amazing. They have Morgellons in there. They have all different types of cancer in there. Parkinson's. They actually have like the Solfeggio or the Rife frequencies that tell you for what kind of cancer or what kind of disease or what kind of treatment healing you're trying to obtain. So just wanted to put that out there.
Wow.
That was our commercial break. So
Awesome.
I don't like
Awesome.
to
Yeah.
fearmonger. I think it's important for people to know who the enemy is, because if you don't know who your enemy is, how are you ever going to protect yourself? But I'm all about the positivity and the solutions. I don't want to fearmonger anyone. If I can leave anybody with anything today, it's that I have hope, but I think it's got to come from us. I
Yeah.
think we got to be the ones.
Yeah. Yeah. I gotcha. Yeah. Got to be on the positive side and to bring it full circle. Yeah.
The positive side. We brought our pawns today.
Yes, we did with the deer in the background.
Yes, it's perfect.
With the deer.
I thought you were in Scotland. It was so beautiful and green there. I'm so jealous it looks like that in Colorado. Oklahoma looked dead throughout most of the year. You can tell when you left the state, everything got green and lush. And then when you go back, it's home of the pothole.
Well, we get a few animals down in our area. Just about a mile away, they had a bear a few years back. There was a bear, and this picture here, I believe, is probably near Berthoud when I worked there. It's so been just out on the side of the road.
That's what
I've
I wanted to
seen,
ask you about. Have you heard? I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
but you're fine. You're
Did you
fine.
hear about the animals that are migrating? There's like they're leaving God, I think it's Yosemite or Yellowstone. It might be Yellowstone, but they're leaving the national park out of Colorado and they're heading for Salt Lake City, Utah. And like shoulder to shoulder down the road is bears, elk, and droves of like eagles, bald eagles. Yeah.
I
Yeah,
haven't
it's
heard
been
that, but we have
I'll
a
send
bald
you the
eagle
article.
nest near our house. About
Aw.
we watched the babies. The lady I carpool with and we pass it, and they have two little babies in there, and they're big enough to where they're good size. You can see them from a distance. They're really good size, and yet they don't have the white on them. I guess they get the white. The
Yeah.
bald eagles get the white when they're like 7 years old. So these guys are just little babies here. So we got to watch mom and dad and the little ones. They're
Oh,
I haven't seen
I
them for
love
a while
that.
now, but yeah, it's really cool to
When I
watch.
lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma, we had I used to play disc golf, like frisbee golf, and
Uh-huh.
we had a male and female bald eagle lived there and had like year round pretty much. They never left. And we used to see them. I mean, it was amazing. I never gotten to see them in real life before then. So I can
Yeah.
understand. That's really cool. I didn't know it took 7 years for the white plumes to come in. That's interesting.
Yeah. I didn't know that either until my carpool said that. And yeah, and just oh my goodness, about 4 or 5 years ago, I didn't realize that Colorado has pelicans. We have pelicans all
Really?
over the place up here.
Yeah, it's
Pelicans.
like now I start seeing seagulls in landlocked states too. I'm like, what are you doing here? There's no ocean nearby. That's
Right.
crazy. Pelicans, huh?
Pelicans. I
Wow.
never saw pelicans. And when I first saw them, I'm like, where? Because I thought they were an ocean animal, but they're at our lakes over here all the time. All
That's
the time.
interesting. Yeah, no, I would have thought they were because I only ever saw them when I grew up in San Diego and my dad was a fisherman when I was a kid. So we used to go out on the boat with them. And that's the only time I ever saw pelicans.
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen them
Yeah.
out. I mean, I haven't even when I lived on the East Coast in New York, I never even saw them there. There's an ocean over there. That's
Yeah.
bizarre. That's really
Yeah. I
weird.
never thought I'd seen them. And we have cranes. I go, why do we have cranes? Yeah. I thought cranes was an
That's
ocean thing
bizarre. I'm
too.
gonna have to look into that. There's got to be something there with that. So I was talking to my friend of mine about this weird animal migration with the bear, and it was so bizarre too, because months back when I found out that the Trump administration, and I'm not political, okay, but I did happen to follow this because I care about the animals. And Aaron had said to me, Michelle, they're cutting all the federal funding from the parks. And the first thing I said is, what's going to happen when all the animals start leaving the parks? Like, I'm sure that's going to happen. I'm sure that the reason they stay in the parks is because of the traffic coming in and out, so they stay in their areas where they feel safe. But if the park gets quiet, where's everybody out? I think they're going to venture out. And why was it only those particular breeds of animals that were migrating, and why to Utah? You know what I mean? Why not somewhere else? I think it was a directed energy frequency, and I think it might have been done on purpose to create havoc and fear and discord amongst the public. Could be wrong.
I haven't heard anything about that, so I don't know. I haven't seen or
Yeah, I'll
heard.
send it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I mean, it was just like, I mean, could you imagine like you're in the carpool lane taking your kid to school and there's like a whole, and they were using the crosswalk. The elk were using the crosswalk. They're crossing the street and there was like thousands of them. This wasn't just like the one off. There was like so many of them. But the rest of Goldilocks and company were left behind at the park.
I yeah, I don't know anything about that one. Yeah, at a loss. You'll have to send me the information. That'll be interesting to
Yeah,
hear
I
what's
sure
going on
will.
with
I
that.
definitely will.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you so
it's
much
a
for
strange
being
world
on
we
the
live.
show.
Thank you
You're
for
an
having me. I know one should be thanking you. This is amazing. I always feel really happy when I get to talk to you, and um, I never thought I'd be doing this in a million years. So it never gets old. And I just want to communicate how appreciative, honored, and humbled I am to have been here today to have this conversation with you, Dana. You're a good person, and you have a great heart.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You're an awesome person yourself. I mean, you you're just amazing. You have this light about you that just shines, and it shows your love and towards humanity and everything. So keep
Thank you.
learning, keep going forth on your journey, and we'll keep in touch. Absolutely.
For sure. For sure. Absolutely. We're friends now. So I can't get rid of, I don't want to ever not have you in my life. So I feel lucky to have a new friend.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Well, you're welcome back anytime to talk about any more fun stuff that you've learned. So keep me in mind.
I
Yeah,
will.
thank you again for being on the show and telling all your stories and your amazing information, wild information. So, yeah, thank
Thanks.
you so much. Yeah.
No problem. If anybody wants to find me, I'm the Earth Grid Rescue Mission on YouTube. I'm actually getting ready to start putting together some private decode groups. I want to teach people how to do this themselves, how to be able to recognize it within the community, so that way they can interrupt those activities, or at least be aware of them. So that's the goal of the future. So,
All right. Well, I will put your information in the notes below. So everybody
you're
will
the
have your
best, Tina.
information. Okay.
I
Well, if anyone
appreciate
else
you.
out there has any stories you would like to share, email me at lighttalk423@gmail.com and we will talk with everyone later. And thanks for being with us. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.